Chosen one. Heaven sent a red alerts for the first time in centuries. It's about you. Stop for a moment before you scroll away, before you answer another message, before you start worrying about everything that could possibly go wrong tomorrow. Take one deep breath and listen, because there is something you need to understand about the season you are in. You may have been calling it confusion. You may have called it anxiety. You may have called it overthinking. You may have even wondered whether you were losing your sense of direction. But what if the real problem is that you have been trying to hear something important underneath a mountain of noise? Think about the last few weeks. Have you noticed yourself becoming more restless? Have you felt like something is changing even though you cannot explain exactly what it is? Maybe certain conversations suddenly feel different. Maybe people you once felt comfortable around no longer feel aligned with where you are going. Maybe you have been waking up with a thought on your mind that you cannot shake. And perhaps the strangest part is this. Nothing dramatic has necessarily happened. Your life may look almost the same from the outside. You still wake up, you still work, you still handle responsibilities, you still answer texts. You still take care of the people who depend on you. But somewhere inside, you know something has shifted. And chosen one, I want you to hear this clearly. Not every intense feeling is a divine instruction. And not every quiet feeling should be ignored. Learning the difference may be one of the most important things you do in this season of your life, because fear is loud. Fear rushes you. Fear tells you that you have to figure everything out immediately. Fear says, "What if everything goes wrong?" Fear makes you replay conversations. Fear makes you imagine problems that have not happened. Fear wants an answer right now. But genuine spiritual direction often feels different. It may be quiet. It may be persistent. It may return when you are alone. It may come to you while you are driving, taking a shower, walking outside, cleaning your house, or doing something completely ordinary. And instead of making you feel like the entire world is collapsing, it may simply bring one thought into focus, one decision, one person, one habit, one door you need to stop knocking on, one direction you need to consider. That distinction matters, because if you treat every fearful thought like a divine warning, you will spend your life running from things that were never chasing you. And if you dismiss every quiet inner conviction simply because it does not come with fireworks, you may continue postponing something that has been trying to get your attention for a long time. So today, I want to give you a new way to look at what you have been experiencing. Not through panic, not through superstition, not through the need to predict the future, but through discernment. First, understand this. Urgency does not automatically mean importance. This is one of the biggest traps you have been living inside. Something can feel urgent without being important. Your phone can buzz, and suddenly you feel like you have to respond. Someone can criticize you, and suddenly you feel like you have to defend yourself. A problem can appear, and suddenly your entire attention moves toward it. But ask yourself something. Will this matter 6 months from now? Will it matter next year? Will it move your life forward? Will it bring you closer to the person you are becoming? or is it simply demanding your attention because it is loud? Chosen one, your attention is valuable. Stop giving it automatically to whatever screams the loudest. You have spent too much time reacting to other people's emergencies while quietly postponing your own calling. You have helped people solve problems while ignoring the one thing inside you that has been asking for change. You have answered everyone else while leaving yourself on read. And maybe this season is teaching you something simple. You are allowed to pause before you respond. You are allowed to think. You are allowed to breathe. You are allowed to say, "I need time to consider this." You do not have to let another person's urgency become your responsibility. That is not selfishness. That is discernment. Second, stop assuming that confusion means you are lost. Sometimes confusion happens because you are standing between two versions of yourself. The old version wants what is familiar. The new version wants what is meaningful. And those two voices can create an internal struggle. The old you says, "Stay where you are. At least you know what to expect." The emerging you says, "You cannot stay here forever." That tension can feel uncomfortable. But discomfort does not always mean you are moving in the wrong direction. Sometimes discomfort means you are outgrowing something. Think about a pair of shoes you wore for years. At one point, they fit perfectly. Then your life changed, your body changed, your direction changed. And eventually, those same shoes became uncomfortable. The shoes did not necessarily become bad. They simply stopped fitting where you were going. Some relationships are like that. Some jobs are like that. Some habits are like that. Even some dreams are like that. And one of the hardest things to accept is that something can have been good for you once and still no longer belong in your next chapter. Do not hate your past. Do not be ashamed of what once mattered. Just recognize when something has completed its purpose. Third, pay attention to what repeatedly returns. There are thoughts that disappear as quickly as they arrive, and then there are thoughts that keep returning. You push them aside. They come back. You stay busy. They come back. You convince yourself you are being unrealistic. They come back. Months pass. They come back. Maybe it is an idea you keep thinking about. Maybe it is a creative project. Maybe it is a change you know you need to make. Maybe it is an apology you need to give. Maybe it is a boundary you need to establish. Maybe it is simply the realization that you cannot continue living the way you have been living. Pay attention to repetition. Not every repeated thought is a divine message. Sometimes repetition simply comes from unresolved emotions, but repetition deserves examination. Instead of immediately obeying the thought, ask, why does this keep returning? What emotion is connected to it? What would happen if I explored it calmly? What evidence supports it? What action would be wise rather than impulsive? That is discernment. You do not have to blindly follow every feeling. You also do not have to silence every feeling. You investigate. You slow down. You listen. Fourth, learn to recognize the difference between fear and conviction. Fear usually makes everything bigger. One problem becomes 10 problems. One mistake becomes a prediction about your entire future. One rejection becomes proof that nobody will ever love you. One delay becomes evidence that your life is falling apart. Fear speaks in extremes. Always, never. Everyone, nobody. Everything is ruined. It's too late. But conviction tends to become more specific. It says, this needs to change. Have that conversation. Stop going back to that situation. Take the first step. Be patient. Prepare. Forgive. Move forward. Do you notice the difference? Fear creates chaos. Healthy conviction creates direction. Fear makes you feel powerless. Healthy conviction gives you something constructive to do. That does not mean every strong conviction is automatically spiritual. It means you should examine the fruit. Where does this thought lead you? Does it make you more honest, more responsible, more compassionate, more courageous, more grounded? Or does it make you paranoid, impulsive, angry, and obsessed? That question can protect you from many mistakes, because something that constantly destroys your peace, judgment, and ability to think clearly deserves to be questioned, not automatically obeyed. Fifth, stop demanding a dramatic sign for every decision. This is where many people get stuck. They want the sky to open. They want a perfect coincidence. They want an unmistakable message. They want absolute certainty before taking a single step. But life rarely works that way. Sometimes direction comes through ordinary wisdom, through preparation, through circumstances, through a conversation, through experience, through realizing that you have been unhappy in the same place for 5 years, through recognizing a pattern you can no longer deny, through finally admitting what you already know. You may be waiting for a sign when what you actually need is courage. You may be praying for clarity while refusing to accept the answer that has already become obvious. And I say that with compassion, because I understand why you do it. Certainty feels safe. If you knew exactly what would happen, you would not be afraid. But faith does not always remove uncertainty. Sometimes faith teaches you how to move responsibly while uncertainty is still present. You do not need to know the entire road. You need enough clarity for the next step. That is it. The next step, not the next 10 years, not every detail, not every outcome. Just the next honest step. Sixth, your body may be telling you to slow down. You have been carrying more than you admit. You smile, you function, you show up, you tell people, I'm fine. But your body remembers what your mouth tries to hide. You may notice that you are constantly tense. You may struggle to relax. You may feel exhausted even after doing very little. You may find yourself checking your phone repeatedly. You may have trouble sitting quietly without reaching for something to distract you. These can be signs that your system needs attention. And this is important. You do not have to turn every physical sensation into a spiritual prophecy. Sometimes your body simply needs rest. Sometimes you need better sleep. Sometimes you need a conversation with someone you trust. Sometimes you need professional support. Sometimes you need to step away from the constant stream of information coming at you every day. You cannot hear clearly when your entire life is filled with noise. Turn off the notifications, take a walk, sit outside, pray, journal, breathe. Let your mind become quiet enough to notice what is actually happening inside you. You are not failing because you need rest. Rest is not laziness. Rest is part of being human. Seventh, do not confuse silence with abandonment. This one is for the person who has been waiting. You prayed, you tried, you changed, you stayed patient. And still, the answer did not arrive when you wanted it. So you started wondering, did I do something wrong? Did God forget me? Am I being punished? Why does everyone else seem to be moving forward while I am still waiting? Listen carefully. Silence does not automatically mean abandonment. A quiet season can still be a meaningful season. Some things grow where nobody can see them. A seed does not look impressive underground. But underground does not mean inactive. There are seasons when your life appears still because the most important work is happening beneath the surface. Your character is developing. Your priorities are changing. Your standards are becoming clearer. Your ability to say no is getting stronger. Your relationship with yourself is becoming healthier. And one day you will look back and realize, that season was preparing me. You may not understand the timing right now. That is okay. You do not have to understand everything to continue moving wisely. And, chosen one, there is something else I want you to hear. You are not required to live in a constant state of alertness to prove that you care about your future. You do not have to worry all night to prove that you are responsible. You do not have to anticipate every possible disaster. You do not have to keep yourself emotionally exhausted just because something important matters to you. Concern can be useful. Chronic fear is not. There is a difference between being prepared and being consumed. Preparation says, I will do what I can. Fear says, I have to control everything. Preparation creates action. Fear creates endless mental rehearsal. You cannot control every outcome. You can control your integrity. You can control your choices. You can control how you treat people. You can control whether you keep learning. You can control whether you walk away from what is unhealthy. You can control whether you take the next responsible step. That is enough for today. And maybe the red alert you have been feeling is not a prediction that something terrible is coming. Maybe it is an invitation to wake up. Wake up to your patterns. Wake up to your priorities. Wake up to the people who drain you. Wake up to the dreams you abandoned. Wake up to the parts of yourself you have ignored. Wake up to the fact that you cannot spend another year reacting to everything around you while neglecting what is happening within you. This is your moment to become more discerning, not more fearful, not more suspicious, not more obsessed with signs, more discerning. When something hits you emotionally, pause. Ask, is this loud or is this meaningful? Am I responding to reality or am I responding to fear? What is actually within my control? What is the next wise step? And then wait long enough to answer honestly. You might be surprised by what happens. The things that looked enormous at midnight may look completely different in the morning. That the conversation you thought you had to have immediately may not require a response at all. The opportunity you were terrified to pursue may suddenly seem manageable. The relationship you kept trying to rescue may finally reveal that it needs to be released. The dream you thought was dead may show you a practical first step. Clarity often becomes visible when panic leaves the room. So tonight, before you sleep, choose one thing that has been consuming too much of your attention. Write it down. Then ask yourself, is this actually my responsibility? If it is, decide what one small action you can take. If it is not, give yourself permission to release it. You do not need to solve the entire world tonight. You need to stop carrying things that were never yours. And tomorrow, when the pressure returns, and it may, you will have a new response. Instead of immediately reacting, you will pause. Instead of assuming the worst, you will examine the facts. Instead of chasing every sign, you will look for wisdom. Instead of asking, "What is going to happen to me?" you will ask, "What kind of person am I becoming through this?" That question can change your life. Because perhaps being chosen was never about receiving a life without difficulty. Perhaps it was about learning how to walk through difficulty without losing yourself. Perhaps it was never about being protected from every storm. Perhaps it was about developing the strength, wisdom, and faith to remain grounded while the storm passes. So, chosen one, do not panic because you feel something changing. Pay attention, but stay grounded. Do not assume every strange moment is supernatural. Do not assume every delay is punishment. Do not assume every closed door means you failed. And do not assume every open door means you should walk through it. Use wisdom, use patience, use discernment. Pray if prayer is part of your life. Seek wise counsel. Look at the facts. Listen to your conscience. And give yourself enough quiet to recognize what is actually happening. You do not have to be afraid of the next chapter. You only need to meet it one day at a time. Maybe the message you have been waiting for is not a dramatic announcement from the sky. Maybe it is the quiet realization that you already know what needs to change. Maybe it is the courage to finally say no. Maybe it is the courage to finally say yes. Maybe it is the decision to stop returning to what keeps breaking you. Maybe it is the decision to take yourself seriously. Maybe it is simply the permission to rest. Whatever your next step is, let it be wise, let it be grounded, let it be honest, and let it come from clarity rather than panic. Because you were never meant to spend your entire life running toward every alarm. You were meant to learn which signals deserve your attention. And once you learn that, something changes. The world may remain noisy, people may remain unpredictable, problems may still appear. But you are no longer controlled by every sound around you. You become steady, you become thoughtful, you become harder to manipulate, you become more aware of yourself. And most importantly, you begin to recognize that peace does not mean nothing is happening. Sometimes peace means you finally trust yourself enough to face whatever happens next. So take one final breath. Relax your shoulders. Release the need to know everything tonight. You are allowed to move slowly. You are allowed to learn. You are allowed to change your mind when new information appears. You are allowed to begin again. And if something important is truly calling your attention, you do not have to chase it in panic. You can meet it with wisdom. Remember these two words, loud or meaningful. When fear screams, pause. When wisdom speaks quietly, listen. When you feel overwhelmed, come back to what is real. When you feel lost, return to the next step. When you feel forgotten, remember that silence is not proof of abandonment. And when you feel like you have to solve your entire life tonight, remember this, you don't. Tomorrow has enough strength of its own. Tonight, Your job is simply to breathe, become still, and stop fighting battles that do not belong to you. The next chapter does not require a terrified version of you. It requires the clearest version of you. And perhaps that is the real awakening happening right now. Not that something outside of you is suddenly changing, but that you are finally learning how to hear yourself clearly enough to recognize what deserves your attention. Chosen one, your life does not need more panic. It needs direction, it needs wisdom, it needs courage, and it needs you fully present. So go into this week differently. Do not chase every signal. Do not fear every delay. Do not mistake noise for destiny. Pause, listen, discern. Then take the next right step. And if this message spoke to something you have been feeling privately, leave a comment and write, "I choose clarity over fear." Let that be your reminder this week. You do not have to understand the entire journey. You only have to be faithful with the step in front of you. And sometimes, chosen one, that quiet step is where everything begins.